This is The Weekly Set, the official podcast of TheTotalScreen.com. Episode 164, recorded July 13th, 2018. Hello, everybody, and welcome to The Weekly Set, the official podcast of TheTotalScreen.com. I am your host. My name is Tyson, and joining me today, as always, is my partner in crime here at The Total Screen, William Rohrig.
Hello.
So today we are going to be talking about Season 2 of Glow, not the actual women's wrestling show from the 80s, but the Netflix series based on the female wrestling show from the 80s. This is a show from Genji Kohan, who created
Is there any way you can watch those? Like, is that like even available anywhere? Like,
I think they actually have a documentary about the real one on Netflix, but the actual show, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know about that. Somebody's probably gonna like find the episodes and commission a DVD. Yeah, somebody's probably gonna find the episodes and like commission a DVD pretty soon.
You know what they need to do with things like that? When they take something that's like really, really retro and really of its time, not something like a really good show that just happened to be from the 80s, but something that's just so characteristic of its time, they need to bring it back and then shove in like actual commercials from that era and stuff into the commercial breaks.
That would be awesome. They kind of did, like, when you get to like the Glow episode, they have like a couple retro style commercials in there, like fake commercials, but it was really funny.
Way back in the day of like anime fan subs, like before it was online, like they used to actually like, you would send a videotape to somebody that fan subbed it, and they would like copy the episodes to a videotape and send it back to you.
Nice.
It used to be like so like low grade like that, and nobody made money on it. It was all done like just kind of for fans to like share anime back when you couldn't get anime, you know, like you could only find like stuff like Dragon Ball. You couldn't find anything that was like different or, you know,
right. Back when, you know, before like the internet really existed to share like the stuff.
Yeah, but the fan subs would be basically people in Japan would videotape the episodes, send them to friends like in America, then the friends would subtitle them, transfer them to another tape. So by the time you got your tape, like the quality was like a copy of a copy of a copy.
Oh, right, and the quality degrades. Like,
so the quality was degrade, but there was something charming to it because they kept in all the Japanese commercials.
Nice.
And subtitled them. So you know what was going on. So it's like you really feel like you're kind of like, oh, like I feel like I'm a kid and this is my Japanese, you know, Saturday morning cartoons almost. Like if I was a kid in Japan, this is what I'd be watching. Like exactly what I'd be watching, like commercials and all. So there's kind of like a charm to that. But that would be a nightmare to license all those rights and stuff for the commercials and everything. But that would be cool. Or they could just make new ones. That would be good too. But they need all that stuff in there. I mean, that's what made that one. Remember, was it Stranger Things season 2 where they had the Super Bowl commercial? It started as like an Eggo commercial.
Right. Right. I remember that.
Yeah, that's great. I wish more people would do that. But anyways.
I actually just like, sometimes I just like, if you go on YouTube, there's like 80s commercials. Like there's like 10-minute strings of 80s commercials. Like if you want to see retro commercials, YouTube has you covered. And I just like binge watch that crap.
Well, that's what YouTube used to be. Like before all the vloggers and all the original content and stuff, it was literally just a place where it's like, I want to watch the theme song to Salute Your Shorts.
Of course, because like, like a lot of people, like certainly me, well, not me, because I lost most of my tapes over like there's like I moved around a lot, so I lost a bunch of shit. But a lot of people like had stuff.
You tape over shit too when you don't like it for, you know, as you're growing up, and then you regret it later.
Some things I taped over. Yeah. I don't know, like there's some things I wish I had. Like I actually like had VHS tape of like just me playing F-Zero, which would have been like on Twitch nowadays, right? But back then I was just taped myself playing F-Zero and nobody saw it because I just did it for me and it wasn't that good. But yeah.
I wish if somebody had done that and still has a videotape, so they would like live stream the videos on Twitch as if it's like a new thing, you know?
That would actually be pretty cool. But we're
kind of way off topic.
Yeah, wow.
But that's fun, you know. This is one of the reasons we like Glow, is that it has that 80s vibe so heavily throughout it, you know, and it's nostalgic, and that's what we're talking about, is nostalgia here.
Yeah, it's nostalgia. That's one of the big points of Glow. It is nostalgia, like that 80s thing. I really enjoy Glow because like it's one of like the few drama shows that where it feels like the drama is like actually real, and it's not like it. If you look at your typical like drama soap opera, everything is so heightened to like an unrealistic degree, you know, to make everything like so dramatic and stuff. Like people have problems. They sometimes have normal problems. Those problems are magnified and heightened to the point where like you have characters like overreact, over exaggerate, people die, people break up, and it's
people do like really stupid things, like, and it just seems like for the sake of drama.
Oh yeah, people turn into complete morons, like just for the sake. It feels real. Like people have real problems and they deal with their issues realistically. It's kind of a breath of fresh air in that respect, no? Because not once have I groaned at anything in the show, you know? Like I think I kind of groaned when like the end of like the Glow episode, they bring in like the mother of Mark Maron's daughter, you know, and I thought, oh god, yeah, that's a soap opera plotline. But again, they handle it really well. It's a really nice episode when she comes on, and it's not played up for drama. It's just they just let it play out like natural, you know.
Let's talk about season 2 as a whole before we dive into like kind of deconstructing the story and stuff. When you and I were both watching it, not on the podcast or anything, but just like in general, we were messaging each other back and forth and talking about how I think I had started it before you, and I was saying like, I watched the first 3 episodes and I just don't like it as much as season 2, but I'm only 3 episodes in.
Right.
And so then you had watched the first episode and you were saying that you had kind of like the same vibe, that you were kind of like, I just don't like it as much, but I'm only the first episode in.
It felt like maybe they were going the opposite direction of what I was just talking about with that first episode. Yeah. It felt like stuff was starting to be played up a little bit, but it's only for that first episode, for me at least.
Yeah, I mean, it started improving in the next 2 episodes, but as the season went on, it definitely got back to the glow that I remembered and loved from
season 1. The first episode kind of scared me into thinking that we were going to get a different show than the first season. Because it comes out and they have Mark Maron's character just be a total ass for the entire episode.
Yeah, that was a big part of it, is that Mark Maron's character, Sam, through the first season, it's like he was an asshole, but it was like, you know how people say, he's an asshole, but he's our asshole. You know?
He's a flawed character. He has rough edges because, like he says, he has insecurity issues, right? And so his kind of thing is to deal with his own insecurities. He acts mean and he pushes people away, and that's his
he lashes out.
And it would be really easy to just take that and just make him the asshole.
Mm-hmm.
And they seem to be going to that, like if that was going to be like his thing through the whole season, I would not have enjoyed it. I would have been like, okay. They just made him the bad guy now. It's like, why? But that's only like for the first episode.
Yeah, they start improving on that soon afterwards, and then as you get to like the middle of the season, it's like, okay, yeah, he's the exact Sam that we knew from the first season again.
Right,
you know?
Right. Yeah, exactly. He's the exact Sam.
I think the thing that really started turning me around on that, I think it was in the 3rd episode when he had the moment where Cherry was basically bombing her role on a TV show.
Right.
And she just was not doing good, and so her husband ended up calling Sam to kind of like, you know, because he needed help to kind of get her to kind of come out of her trailer and kind of figure things out. You know, and bringing Sam in for that, and then showing his sweet side, and then you see like, okay, yeah, this is Sam. He can be an asshole, but he can also be sweet, and that's when they kind of like brought that back, and it's like, okay, now I'm starting to see the Sam that I remember, and now it's like starting to kind of click back together again.
Yeah,
so, yeah, exactly. I think that was like the turning point for this season.
Yeah, for the season. So what do you think of the season overall?
I really liked it. Like I said, I was first 3 episodes in, I was kind of a little bit nervous going through the rest of the season, the rest of the 7 episodes. Like, even looking back at the first 3 now, I like it as a whole. It's just that the first 3 by themselves, like in a vacuum, weren't as good as I would have liked. But as a whole, it's not as if they're like a bad part of the fruit or something. It's a whole good fruit. You just need like the context for the rest of the season. But yeah, I really dug it. I think I might like it more than season 1, just because season 1 was all build up. And season 2 actually has like, it encompasses an entire season run of the show.
Right.
Like the first season was like all the build up to the first episode.
It was the build up to the first episode.
The entire first season, you know?
Yeah, the season 1 was like getting the crew together, getting everything in place to like make the show, and then finally the show happens. And now that they have all the characters assembled and they have all the characters familiar with each other to a degree, they're able to do a deeper dive into their lives while making a show, which is ultimately what the show is about. It's not really about the show, it's about the people and their lives, you know, while they're making the show and like all the drama that happens between people.
But it's more fun when you bring in all the elements of an actual moving show.
Right, exactly.
Like they did in season 2. So, I mean, that kind of brings us to the first kind of thing I wanted to bring up about the show, which is one of the first things that as you have they have a show now. They got their pilot episode and now they have a show. Well, now they're staffing up. So they're building out like a fake hotel thing as like a set to record bits in. They're doing all this. They have staff and they bring on this camera guy who had been working in porn before, and he just kind of looks kind of sleazy. He has that kind of 70s sleaze look, you know, like
he has that 70s sleaze
curly
look,
hair, mustache, kind of, you know, like that kind of classic sleazy look from that era of the, you know, early 80s when that had been kind of more common in the 70s, and then in the 80s that look suddenly became kind of sleazy.
Right.
And I really like what they did with this character because you see him, first thing you think is, oh, this guy's kind of sleazy, like I said.
Well, the first thing that happens, right, because he and Ruth kind of hit it off. You know, he asked Ruth, you know, if she would like to go back to his place to go over some tape or something. And Debbie overhears this, and Debbie immediately interjects and offers Ruth a ride, you know, and Debbie acts like she just saved Ruth from being date raped, you know, was like the way Debbie put it. And we find out that Debbie is actually doing this for selfish reasons, not really to help out Ruth in any way. But,
yeah. But I mean, they kind of go back and forth on this the whole time, though. It's kind of like his interest in her can come across as a little creepy.
It comes off as creepy, and it's not just Debbie, but like a lot of the other characters are creeped out by him.
Yeah,
and
as it progresses, though, you start to realize more and more that it's less that he's creepy and more that he's awkward in the situation.
Right, he's awkward in the situation. Exactly. You find out like
he's not malevolent. He's not like doing anything horrible. He's awkward. You know,
he's earnest and genuine in his intentions. At least so far as what the show presented. And that's what you come to find out. And yeah, he's just awkward. So like other people aren't trusting of him, but like Ruth is charmed by this awkwardness. You know, like Ruth like actually falls for him. It's just like people around Ruth kind of like try to keep her away from him. You know,
it's usually for selfish reasons too.
And usually for selfish, especially on Debbie's part, because Debbie
and Sam's as well.
And Sam's as well. Yeah, we find out. You know, Sam is a little overprotective for his own reasons. But Debbie's plotline this season is that she is going through her divorce, you know, the divorce process with her husband, and that's wrecking her, and she still blames Ruth for her problems, you know. She's still blaming Ruth for all this. And so she starts doing mean-spirited things to Ruth, like sabotaging her relationship with this cameraman, you know, and just doing, as the season progresses, she just does like these underhanded things, you know, to spite Ruth, and Ruth goes along with it until it comes to a head where Debbie, you know, she has this big fight with Ruth, and right before it, you know, Debbie gets upset, and then she gets high. She finds some cocaine and she takes it, and then she basically loses it in the ring and purposefully breaks Ruth's leg.
Yeah, breaks her ankle.
Yeah, breaks her ankle.
The episode kind of ends on that. It's kind of like, you know, you talked about like the no overly dramatic big moments. That's like the one that would play in, but I like what they did with it, so it becomes okay.
Right.
That's like the one kind of like, oh, that's kind of a big severe moment that she would actually purposefully break her leg. But then the way they kind of handled that after that made it kind of worthwhile. But Debbie's story is kind of interesting because towards the beginning of the season, she she goes in because she's got a little bit more leverage than the other wrestlers do.
Right. She was actually a working actress, She was in soap operas, so she wasn't just like discovered.
So she negotiates. The wrestlers have these very bad contracts, basically, and she negotiates a very good contract for herself with her husband, who she's divorcing as well, helps her with that.
And she positions herself as a producer on the show.
Yes.
Which Bash and Sam do.
Immediately starts like hanging over Ruth's and everybody else's heads.
Which Bash and Sam like do everything they can to kind of minimalize that and exclude her from like everything as much as possible.
Mm-hmm.
And she comes in and she says she's a producer. It's on paper, but like Bash and Sam are just like, their reaction is just like, yeah, you can think that, but we're just gonna go off and like have meetings and stuff without you anyway.
And Debbie's also, partly from her frustration from that, but also just her other frustrations involving Ruth and other things going on in her life, is using her producer position to kind of lord it over the other wrestlers.
Right.
Especially Ruth.
Especially Ruth, because as we see, like in the first episode, Ruth takes some initiative and she films an opening promo for the show, an opener for the show in a mall with the camera guy. But she does this behind Sam's back, and when Sam finds out, he loses it on her, which really causes, for like half the season, causes Ruth to like kind of like treat Sam like a sad puppy, like, I did something wrong, am I forgiven? Like, type deal, which is kind of sad, kind of sweet, maybe, but like, she's just, but
her reaction to it all is that she is just genuinely and completely earnestly, like we'd mentioned, the cameraman being earnest, genuinely and earnestly in love with the show and what they're trying to do.
Right.
She's just so into it, and she's so enthusiastic. So when she like proposes an idea for the show, she's like, ooh, what if we do this? Which she does frequently, and it's like a big part of the show. She's not just doing that like to kind of better her own position. She's doing that because she loves the show.
She's trying to do anything. When she went and do that, she didn't have like any kind of angle, like she wasn't trying to like steal Sam's job or anything. She was doing it because she was genuinely enthusiastic about the show and helping the show out in like every way that she possibly could. And Sam being like Sam later says, in the theater, he just says he's insecure, and Sam lashing out, that was his personal insecurities coming out. He just directed them at Ruth.
Debbie does similar things to shut down.
Debbie does, yeah. Debbie takes this incident, and once she gets her producer's credit, she really uses it to lord it over Ruth, like in a very catty way. Like, well, you thought you'd be a director, but I'm the producer on the show now. So,
So, like, she'd be in the room talking excitedly and coming up with plans, and then Debbie would walk in and go, this is a producer's only meeting, or something.
Yeah, she had something like that.
Yeah, and it's like, Ruth in this is just being heavily beaten down because she's like, don't do this. I'm not in this because I'm trying to like take credit from other people or do anything. I just love this, what we're doing, and I want to be involved, and I have ideas and I want to express them. And so, whereas before she had done something very wrong at the beginning of season 1, before she found her purpose in the show, in season 2, it's kind of like Ruth's storyline is heavily involved with her paying for that, what she had done in the past, and suffering kind of for that. And it doesn't end that way. It ends kind of more in a way that gives you more hope for her involvement in it and shows that other people respect it. And you can already see, like, it's really only Debbie and Sam that are giving her constant shit. Like, the other wrestlers are like, kind of see her as like a leader, among their group. But Debbie is upset about everything that went on with that. Sam's insecure, and so she's constantly getting kind of like pushed down.
She's kind of getting pushed down just because people around her have personal issues they're going through, and in some ways they're taking out their issues on Ruth. Debbie because she blames Ruth for her current divorce, and Sam just because he's insecure, and Ruth kind of like stepped on his toes a little bit when she filmed that behind his back, or at least that's the way Sam interpreted it as, like she was like trying to take his job or something.
Let's talk a little bit more about Sam in the story,
right?
Because besides this stuff going on with Ruth, and it kind of becomes intertwined with Ruth a bit, but because of that, or besides that, Sam is also dealing with the fact that he has this daughter now that was one of the wrestlers in the first season that we found out she was underage, and that she was Sam's daughter. And then the whole reason she was there is because she was...
Yeah, because she tracked him down. she tracked him down and she wanted to get to know her father.
And so she's not wrestling now, but she's staying with him.
Yeah, she's staying with him.
Trying to figure out how to kind of be a father.
Yeah, he's trying to figure out how to be a dad to this girl, you know, like he's never had to deal with a kid before, so like he kind of sucks at it.
Yeah.
And they have this like awkward relationship, you know, where like he's trying to be a dad, but he doesn't really know what to say to her or exactly like how to, you know, exactly how he's supposed to be, you know. So like all his interactions with her are like awkward as shit.
She's still got that one boyfriend who's in a punk band. We're starting to see in this season that it's not necessarily a good relationship.
No, and I think I could have told you that in the last season. It wasn't a good relationship last season either. Like,
but even she's starting to kind of notice it through this season. And it's more just like her constant rebelling is what's keeping her within this relationship.
Yeah, it's keeping her constant rebelling, like because he's a rebel and he's a punk and he's so cool, right? So that's the basis of that relationship.
Yeah. She had started rebelling against her mom, and now that her father's kind of taken on a more fatherly role, now that he knows she exists, she's kind of like taking some of that rebellion on him now as well.
Right, exactly. This storyline culminates with he puts her in an episode of Glow. He casts her as like a nurse, right? And when that airs, like her mother, her biological mother, sees her on TV, finds out where she ran off to, you know, because she's been looking for her, you know, since she ran away. So she finally tracks her down, and we find out that this was a woman that Sam dated. Sam obviously got her pregnant with his daughter, but he, you know, that relationship didn't really go anywhere, you know. She kind of says, you know, like he just took off, you know.
Yeah.
You know,
it's interesting because when this happens, Ruth had kind of come over to their house.
Yes, Ruth, this was after Ruth's ankle got broken, and Ruth had come over to Sam's house and was kind of like, you know, sleeping in his place.
Yeah, sleeping on the couch at his house. But this is kind of like, it's Sam's daughter kind of almost like trying to build like a family unit.
Right.
And her father, not necessarily trying to set them up, but trying to create like a kind of family unit with like a motherly figure and a fatherly figure in her life. And she's kind of putting this together. So she's been orchestrating all these things to kind of get Ruth and Sam back together. Again, like I said, not even necessarily to try to get them to hook up, but more just in the sense of like
to have like
there's been tension between
some semblance of a normal distance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so she's been working this, and because of this, Ruth had come over for dinner and ended up staying there because Sam had some alcohol, so he couldn't drive her. And she basically, like, you know, was too tired and with her leg, you know, with her ankle, just did not want to go. So then that became, okay, well, she's going to stay on the couch. And then what ends up happening with Sam's baby mama is
goes up and she wants to take her daughter back, you know.
And Sam and Ruth is just kind of like in the middle of this now.
Ruth is kind of in the middle. Sam's asking Ruth for help because he wants to be able to keep his daughter, but you know, he knows if he goes out there, he's going to be Sam and say something awful and that'll be it, right? Like he's like, I don't know how to be civil. So Ruth kind of helps him through it. There's a high school dance happening, and Ruth kind of suggests to the mother there that she lets her daughter go to this dance that she's looking forward to. And that ends up happening. And what happens at the dance is that she gets together with her boyfriend, and they come up with a scheme that they were going to run off to New York. Like, just bail right there without telling anybody where they're going. And then Sam finds out about it. Sam confronts her as she's leaving, trying to leave, you know, and she tries to feed him a line, but he knows enough to know when she's lying at this point. So he finds out from her what she's planning to do, and then he calls over her mother and tells her, and they have this sort of confrontation, but then you really see, like, Sam really step up as a father, saying, you know, like, he tells her not to go, but he says, you know, don't do it for me. Don't do it for your mother, you know, do it for you. Like, just be your own person. Just do what you want to do. Be your own person. Don't just do shit because Billy wants you to do shit, you know.
Yeah.
Which
and
was
through that, he's able to get through to her.
Yeah. And through that, he's
in a way that her mom couldn't, because her mom just took on a constant adversarial role.
Right. Exactly.
Do what I say, do what I say, do what I say. And Sam comes in and says, like, look, I'm not telling you to do what I say. I'm telling you this is going to be harmful to you, and do what's best for you. And I don't think that that's what's best for you. And really think about that if that's what's best for you.
Right.
And know that I'll be here for you, kind of thing. And so he kind of steps up in a very fatherly role. which impresses her mom.
Not enough for her mom to let him keep her, but,
Enough that she's going to let him be a part of his life.
Enough that, they negotiate to let her be a part of his life. And that leads to a very sad goodbye where she has to leave with her mom and they have to say goodbye. That's really the resolution to that plot line. There's another thing that happens at that dance, though, where, like, Sam is dancing with Ruth and he makes a pass at her, which Ruth rejects because she doesn't see Sam like that. She sees him as a more fatherly figure,
So it's kind of, I think for Sam even, it wasn't so much that Sam's completely attracted to Ruth, but it's their relationship is weird.
Right.
Their relationship is like, they work together, they collaborate with each other, he really respects her, and so these feelings get kind of confused for him, I think.
Yeah.
And so she didn't reject him harshly, it was just kind of like, she kind of was back away like,
well, she was surprised.
Yeah,
she didn't reject, she was more surprised at it than anything.
Yeah.
She was, like, caught off guard.
And this is what finally brought her together with her boyfriend here.
Right.
Russell.
Because she was going to stay away from Russell because, like, everybody wanted her to, right? Like, after her ankle's broken, she's in the hospital, Russell's trying to help out, asking about her, and everybody's like, just like being like, just go away. We don't need you. You're not needed or wanted around here. So, like, very adversarial towards him, very protective of Ruth. So, like, there was a time where, they had managed to convince Ruth that there's a point in the middle where Ruth and Russell have a fight and they kind of break up. But that doesn't last by the end of the season.
That was, well, they kind of, it's not like they broke up, it's like they stopped before they even started.
Well, that's what Ruth says. It's like, it never really started. Is what Ruth says to Sam in the theater, right? Yeah, they stopped before they started.
Yeah, and then now they're starting. This is the trigger for what starts them, like, officially dating, and Ruth, and it's all kind of set up well because Ruth's journey is her, like, kind of seeking redemption for what she had done to Debbie in the first season, at the very beginning of the first season, what kind of kicked off the whole rivalry between the two of them, and coming to realize at a certain point that she can't ask for forgiveness anymore. She just needs to forgive herself, and she needs to, like, make her own choices and not just be stepped on by everybody anymore. Let other people decide what's best for her. So that's kind of like the conclusion of that bit of the story for her, is the fact that she decides for herself. Like, she decides, like, I don't care what Debbie thinks or what Sam thinks. I don't care what everybody else thinks about this. This is what I want, and this is what I feel I deserve now, and I'm going to take it. Right. And so I thought that was like a really important part of her character story this season.
Right, exactly.
So let's talk about some kind of other, I was going to get into, like, the kind of fans and stalkers and stuff, but
it's not really a big thing. Like, the big thing with the fan thing is, like, Britannica has, like, this fan that's obsessed with her, and it's not a big deal until, like, it's revealed that she's in the country illegally, and they tell her to go to the embassy to, like, get a green card or whatever, and instead, like, she ends up, like, being threatened with deportation, and so, like, they hatch the idea that, knowing she's facing deportation, they hatch the idea that for the finale of Glow, they're going to have her marry her stalker, which is like which is like a really bad idea. But, like, for as much as people, like, gave Russell shit, they are going to get behind, like, having like Britannica marry this creepy stalker just because. It's like,
who they call Cupcake because he constantly brings her cupcakes. Yeah,
because it constantly brings her cupcake. I'm just like, hypocritical much?
Did you notice who that was, by the way, who played Cupcake?
I recognize the actor, but
it's the kid from The Sandlot, the overweight kid from The Sandlot.
That's where I've seen that kid. He does not look that much different, which is scary, actually. Yeah. Like, wow, did you age?
He has the same face, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's the same face.
But so he's playing Britannica's stalker who, gets involved, and they do this the final episode is this huge wedding spectacular, and they're about to tie the knot.
But we'll get back to that. Because this crosses over with some other storylines, which we need to touch on first, I think, before we can get to there. But that's the idea. That's basically, besides the ending with the wedding, which we'll get to, that's basically all that happens with the stalker. There's other storylines too, like Bash has this whole storyline throughout the season where he's just I think for the most part, he's discovering himself. his butler goes missing, Florian, who he has like a very deep relationship with. It's, you know, more than just like a relationship with some guy and his butler. Like these two were like at the very least best friends, maybe even more. It's kind of hinted.
Heavily implied.
It's heavily implied, yeah.
Things specifically happened. Maybe not that anything's happened, but that there were feelings there.
There were feelings there. Yeah, it's heavily implied there were feelings there. But he goes missing, and much of Bash's like internal storyline is just he's trying to find Florian, and while he's doing this, he's also like trying to promote the show. And what ends up happening is he ends up learning that Florian is dead. He passed away. They say the official reason is pneumonia, so I guess you can guess it's drug.
No, that's not. It's HIV.
Oh, that's right. You're right.
That's why they said that it would be hard to find a funeral home that would.
That's right.
That would accept them and stuff.
You know what? I did not get those dots. I should have.
See, I knew somebody who had HIV in the 80s. So like I remember this very clearly, like the AIDS panic of the 80s, you know, and the kind of stuff like once he dies, like he goes and he has like everything in the place just like removed and everything
bleached and scrubbed, you know.
It's the AIDS scare, you know, and so there's a lot related around that, the idea of like the kind of panic of that outcome and how that comes about, and it's the official reason for death was pneumonia because, you know, HIV and AIDS is an autoimmune deficiency. So.
Yeah, it makes you more susceptible to disease than you normally would be.
People don't usually die of AIDS. You die of something.
Because
you die of cancer or pneumonia, or you know, you die of something you got because of AIDS.
Right, exactly. You don't die. So when they say you're right, it is HIV because so this kind of, you know, Bash is in an emotionally wrecked place, you know, by the end of the season because, you know, he just lost to him the best person in his life.
Yeah, it could be potentially the love of his life.
Yeah, potentially. And so, another thing going on with this is there's this whole plot line about they're trying to save the show. Because what happens is they're trying to negotiate with the network, and the head of the network, the CEO of the network, you know, wants to interview Sam and Bash to talk about it, but then, you know, he sees Ruth, and he invites Ruth to, you know, discuss the show with him privately, you know.
Yeah, and that was a creepy episode when she was getting all excited about discussing the future with him and all these kind of things, realizing what was happening.
Not realizing, like,
you could see it, like, you know, as a fan watching it, especially in our current era with all the Me Too stuff, you can see it a mile away what's happening here.
Yeah, you can see a mile away.
He's trying to totally Weinstein her, you know?
Yeah, he's and he does Weinstein her because, you know, like, she doesn't give in to him. She escapes, and he retaliates by basically sending the show to die at 2 a.m.
Yeah, he puts it in a death slot and just isn't kind of letting it go. So there's a part that was really good in the episode where it's actually Debbie and Bash, and they're going to like a conference, like a convention for television broadcasting.
Yeah.
To try to sell Glow to like another network or something.
Yeah, they realized they could just take Glow and sell it to somebody. Well, like for most of the season after that, like everybody's kind of like, they find out about the move to 2 a.m. Like nobody can figure out why the network's not supporting them, and they go through the season.
They're trying to get better, not realizing that that's not the problem.
Yeah, not realizing that's not the problem. And then finally Ruth confides in Debbie what happened, and Debbie
kind of blames Ruth, yeah.
Oh, Debbie, because of her feelings towards Ruth, you know, like her animosity towards Ruth that's been brewing, instead of being supportive, she just blames Ruth for the show ending. You know, basically tells Ruth that she just killed the show by not having sex with that guy, you know, which is really like
putting Ruth in an even lower place where she's feeling now guilty as like the cause of the show being ruined, which is what makes it such a good moment also when she eventually confides in Sam.
Which I think, as far as the things Debbie did Ruth this season, that was actually the shittiest. More so than breaking her ankle on purpose. I think that right there was the shittiest thing Debbie did to Ruth all season.
Because it makes her feel isolated, and she's not going to tell other people about this experience that she had that was very bad. And
right.
She's she's going to be afraid to talk about it because now she thinks that she's at fault, like she's somehow to blame for it.
This is why I love Sam, because she tells Sam, and like his reaction isn't like he doesn't blame Ruth. You know, his reaction is like, "Oh, well, that guy's a prick.
Yeah, he's like,
what an asshole!
Guy.
Fuck that guy." And then Sam goes and he bashes in like the windshield of his car.
Which is funny because the other like network executive that had been before dealing with Glow and everything that had kind of set up Ruth to do that.
They had set that up for Ruth to be
clearly doesn't like this guy either, but feels like, he needs to for his career stick by this guy and help him do all the sleazy things he does. But he sees Sam smash his car window
and his reaction is like, Tom's pissed off a lot of people. Like, who's to say who did it?
So he leaves. He does at least something somewhat redeeming for the fact that he had left Ruth in that situation. But that's kind of resolved. But now they need to find another solution to sell the show. So they go to this convention. And at first, like, they're just kind of taking the very traditional approach. And so at first it's all like disillusionment. Like they see their booth and they're just like, man, this is crap. And they just kind of feel like outsiders. They came in with high hopes and everything's down. But then Bash has a brilliant idea. He says to Debbie, he says, have you seen what was it? It was one of the Muppet movies. I can't remember.
Muppets. I don't know. Muppets Take Manhattan.
Yeah, I think it was. It was Muppets Take Manhattan, and she's like, no, like acting like he's being crazy or something. He's like, I've seen it so many times. Like this is, and the idea he proposes basically from that movie, which is they're just going to go around and talk up the show while not representing it themselves.
Like pretending, just
pretending that they're just some other executives that have like
pretending that like
seen an amazing thing.
Yeah, just whispering within earshot of people,
leaving videotapes behind on counters, like accidentally,
just like pretending that they're executives who discovered this amazing show, and and like how they're going to get to it first if somebody else doesn't. Trying to generate interest that way,
and they get a lot of interest. Actually, unfortunately, it doesn't go through because Tom finds out about this and sends his lackey off to basically say, hey, we own this according to the contracts.
Yep, according to they say they own the characters, right? They own the rights to the characters the girls made up. But he says, they can still keep doing it live, just can't be aired anywhere else except for the network. And
this is at the very end. This is like after they filmed their big wedding.
Yeah, this is after they,
which was like a huge spectacular, and everybody was going crazy.
There's other plot lines too. Cherry is brought back. At the beginning of the season, they bring in, because Cherry went off to further her acting career to be the star of like this show, this cop show.
Yeah, and we talked about that and how it kind of.
We talked to that. They brought in like a new person to like take Cherry's spot, which is like this stripper who's also a lesbian.
Yeah,
she becomes the new junk chain, and then when Cherry's acting career doesn't go where the direction she hoped it would, Sam convinces her to come back, and there's a little animosity between those two over like the junk chain character, but then Cherry decides that she doesn't want it back anyway, and she with like her boyfriend who's the referee, she invents a new character for herself.
Well, it's basically a character they'd used for like sex role play.
Yeah, it is.
And they say like, let's bring that character as like a wrestling character. It's just like this voodoo priestess or whatever.
Yeah, this voodoo priestess. Yeah. That she brings. She decides she likes that character a lot better than Junk Jane, which wasn't really something she came up with in the first place. That was Sam's invention. So she says she's happy to give it up.
So what happens at the end of this other storyline we were talking about with them finding out that they can't do a show now is that Sam has now developed a relationship with the owner of this strip club, who's also the father of one of the kids that his daughter's friends with in the AV club at his high school. They had mentioned, this is where the new junk chain had come from the strip club that this guy owned. He was in attendance for it all. He was kind of hanging out with Sam when they found out that all the networks passed on it, and he said, you know what? He's like, this is a show.
Yeah. He says,
and they're like, well, we're not going to strip in these characters. And he's like, no. He's like, I own stakes in
a hotel in Vegas. Yeah. And he says they could perform in Vegas live. That's kind of the thing. And the end of the season is they all get on a bus to go to Vegas, which is the end of the season, to do like a live show in front of like massively huge audiences eventually. It's like the opportunity of a lifetime that just like falls in their lap just because Sam happened to meet this guy at his daughter's high school dance, which is kind of weird, but, fortunate for them. But there's also another little thing where Machu Picchu decides to, upon Cherry's urging, decides to, like, steal some of her brother's moves, and her brother finds out about it, and that causes this thing,
Which she ended up resolving by giving him some TV time in the final episode, the wedding episode.
So I think now, I think now we have all our bases covered enough to talk about the finale and why.
Talk about the finale.
Well, to talk about like the big like ending match and stuff that they come up with, which is where like these storylines kind of start to converge. Where their big idea for the match is it's centered around this wedding, this very real wedding with Britannica and her stalker, which then would leads to a battle royale, for the bouquet.
Before it leads to that, the wedding's interrupted.
Well, the wedding's interrupted. Well, okay. So here's the deal. So they're going to have the wedding with Britannica and her stalker, which nobody seems to think is a bad idea, except for like maybe Britannica. And still, I'm mystified by that. It's like, okay, I think that if this goes through, it's going to end badly. Thankfully, like Bash. And I don't know where this exactly comes from because he jumps in and he says he has feelings for Britannica, but that's not really shown anywhere else in the show.
I think what it is it's a combination of the fact that he had just gone through this tragedy,
or Bash,
and that he's been second guessing his own identity and everything. The fact that he did have some feelings for Britannica, more so as like somebody that had helped him out,
right,
when he was in a bad situation, and basically let him sleep in her room when he was kicked out of his own house and stuff. But also just the fact that I think part of it is he didn't want to see her marry this guy. Like he saw something. I think it was all of that kind of playing together in his head and maybe gave him the mistaken idea that he had feelings for her, or maybe just kind of gave him to the point where he's like, fuck it. I'll marry her, get her green card. She won't have to be with this cupcake guy, and then we'll figure it out from there. Because basically like the way he says it to her is like, let's just do this backwards. We'll get married and then we'll date, We'll just kind of do this. Like we don't have to jump into it.
It's kind of a spur of the moment. He kind of jumps in and saves her from marrying the stalker, because
who reacts in a bad way, which ends up working for the show too.
Yeah. He's like, this is bullshit, and they kind of like kick him out of the ring, which works for the show. And then they have the big battle royale where Machu Picchu's brothers get involved, and then they have a nice moment where Ruth, who couldn't take part in that finale fight because of her leg, Sam finds a way for her to be a part of it, for her to actually win at the end of it.
Line into the ring, and
he zipline and knocks them all out, and then she takes it. And that's such a good moment too, because it's really shows how much Sam cares for Ruth. At this point.
Yeah. It shows like their relationship working in the right way now. And that's what's moving forward with where season 3's going now, with them kind of all on the bus, taking off to Vegas. Debbie has to leave her kid behind, but she's come to an understanding with her husband now, her ex-husband.
Right, exactly.
She just got divorced from, who's now supportive of her. Like he's been able to move on, and now because he's been able to move on, he's also able to now be supportive of her. Say, look, you need this. This is what divorced families are like. I'll take care of him and you can fly back and that's it. We'll just do it this way so that you can have this. And at the same time, Ruth is now going to be in a long distance relationship with her boyfriend because he's all, what a live show doesn't need? A cameraman.
Yeah.
So he's like, I don't really have a place here anymore. So like I can find work in LA. I can do some stuff in LA and I'll come out and visit you and you can come out and visit me and we'll make this work, and so like everyone's kind of like making these compromises to make things work, and they're heading out and everything seems to be kind of in a good place, even more so than like in the last season finale.
Yeah. So we're going to new places with this, literally.
Vegas.
Vegas, baby. So next season's going to be interesting for sure.
Now that we finish this, I mean, there's two kind of like almost standalone episodes that I really want to talk about.
There's the Glow episode, which was amazing.
But before that, even I think one of the more powerful episodes was the Welfare Queen episode.
Oh yeah, you're right. Which the Welfare Queen, which basically she goes to see her son. Her son is in college, right?
Stanford.
Yeah, Stanford, and he's doing well. So she goes to see him. She's supportive of him, but at the same time, she won't tell him what she's doing because she's kind of like ashamed of it, and like there's a trepidation in her about like what his reaction to it. What if he knew what she was doing? So
unfortunately, Glow is now televised.
Unfortunately, it's now televised. She finds out she can't exactly keep it a secret secret from him. So she has to come out and tell him what
this happens in like the worst way possible, which is like she's on his college campus. She's wearing a Stanford sweater. She's all excited.
Somebody recognizes her and calls her by her wrestling handle, which is Welfare Queen.
Which is worse, not just because it exposes the wrestling thing eventually, but because he literally calls her Welfare Queen.
Yes,
this poor black woman who's always struggled and worked hard, and her son's like, "What the fuck did you just call her?"
Their son's looked like he was about to like knock his lights out, you know,
like having no idea,
having no idea
going on. And so now she's like forced basically to say like, no, it's okay.
To come clean about what she's doing. And she invites him to go see like a match that she's doing. Right up front, he's just got like all these, because, you know, he says, his thing is like, oh God, it's offensive, you know, like that's Welfare Queen, you know, that's a horrible stereotype, you know, what are you doing? You know?
And what they did so well in this is that, and this is just a thing with 80s and 80s wrestling in particular, but I mean, it was also before we started the podcast, we talked about like Punch Out and stuff, and Punch Out had this kind of stuff, these offensive stereotypes and stuff, and played up for kind of like laughs and humor and stuff. But what they really did a good job of in this episode is just by having her son in the audience and her having to kind of look out in the audience and see him and the way she's reacting to it, the way like the announcer's all Welfare Queen, you know, like looking for another handout, and like all these kind of like lines that are related to this kind of offensive thing that like as an audience we've been kind of like laughing at through the show this whole time.
Right, you can see it through a different lens. Right?
Yeah,
it starts, you know, it's interesting what it does to you, because once you're made aware of it, once you're brought out of like accepting it as something fun, it is cringing, because like every time like something happened now, like I just cringed like every time, you know, like
oh yeah, it was painful.
Yeah, and then you look out and she sees her son, and her son just looks like so disappointed, you know, and that like has a big effect on her, you know. She ends up like at the end of the match just leaving the ring in tears, you know,
which is like a big deal, because she leaves the ring in tears after she's having a fight with Liberty Bell, Debbie's character.
Yeah, it's supposed to be the big match.
Face. Like in wrestling, there's faces and heels. Faces are like the good guys, heels are the bad guys.
Right. She was the heel, which makes it even worse because she was the heel and Liberty Bell was the face. And of course, now when you put it in context, well, the face is like this beautiful white woman, and the heel is like this heavyset black woman who's like portrayed as like easy, and you know, it's really bad. It's really bad.
You see like the genuine emotion on her face. Of what she's going through, thinking about that. And when she runs out crying, it's not only is it like a really sad, kind of devastating moment for the character, but it's also like it screws up everything that the show's trying to do.
Right.
Because basically it forces their main face of the entire show is now basically being booed as a heel.
Yeah, she's now basically being booed as a heel, yeah.
So they do an interesting thing now where, because Ruth basically, again, showing how clever she is with this stuff and how much she loves the show, quickly runs out, grabs like a girl from her mom, and the mom's like, "What are you doing?" And then she's like, "Oh, can I borrow for a second?"
Like, there's this little girl who's like a big fan of the show and like a big fan of Liberty Bell. You know, she's like a little preteen girl, you know, and she's there to watch Liberty Bell, and as Liberty Bell's just getting booed, like Ruth, like just thinking on her feet, just grabs her, you know, and then instantly creates a storyline where Liberty Bell has a daughter in Zoya, who is Liberty Bell's main heel. You know, Zoya kidnaps her, and this sets up this kidnapping plot line for the show that runs through the season. You know,
which is, you know, it's supposed to be there's supposed to be a fight. Like there's a big dispute. One of the things where Debbie's kind of putting her foot down on Ruth was that they're supposed to have this fight, and Debbie's like, "Well, I win, obviously, because I'm the face," and Ruth's like, "Well, we're playing out this storyline where you're trying to get your daughter back. If you just beat me, we're just kind of wasting everything that happened. You know, like we're not doing anything with it." And that's when she gets her like leg broken. But what's interesting there is this leads into a different episode, because they have a certain point when they realize that that they're not getting their way with anything, that they've been dropped into this 2 a.m. time slot, and they basically have like a fuck it moment where they're like, we're at 2 a.m. in the morning, fuck it.
Yeah, we're 2 a.m.
Let's just go fucking crazy.
Nobody's watching us anyway, you know. Yeah, let's just go crazy.
And this leads us into one of the best episodes this season, the Glow episode. episode, which is weird to say about a show called Glow, but it's the episode where the entire episode is like an actual episode of Glow.
Yeah, it's like they're airing an episode of Glow instead of like the behind the scenes of the Glow, right?
Yeah.
Which is really cool because
shot with like bad video quality.
Yeah, it shows like all the skits and stuff. It shows like the opening
music videos.
The music videos. Oh my god, the opening that Ruth filmed. It shows the storyline with the kidnapping storyline where Liberty Bell gets her daughter back at the end of it.
It was very like it was funny they introduced that Ruth's character Zoya the Destroyer has like a twin
since this was after Ruth's ankle was broken, they can't have like Zoya like really participate, so they come up with this idea of her twin sister with a deformed leg. It's funny, and she's doing
like her good twin, like Zoya's the evil twin, and she's
one of the best things about the show is like is her Yakov Smirnoff impersonation that she does is amazing. Like Alison Brie is so awesome in this show. Like really, like her performance is amazing all around. Like a lot of them do a good job. But
she gets to play a lot of lines because she gets to like play like this delightfully cheesy kind of evil, but then she also gets to kind of play this very like sweet character that's just it kind of like put herself in a bad situation, is now suffering deeply for that, and we get like a lot of different emotions in that because we get this like we get this sadness from it, we get this kind of despair from it, but we also get like this kind of like this character that you want to like root for and that you want to be successful because she's so
genuine, earnest person.
Yeah.
The only complaint I have about this episode is they break kayfabe at like very end when they have the scene where that's how they bring Sam's ex-girlfriend, the mother of Sam's daughter, into the show. At the end, if they had just left that scene out and just had like the credits and just have it stand alone as an episode of Glow, and then like save that scene for like the beginning of the next episode or something, I think it would have been cooler.
It would have felt more like a standalone episode. I get that, but at the same time, it's like I think the whole idea is that this whole episode, the reason we're seeing this whole episode is because it's being watched by this woman.
Right. I get the idea. I get the idea behind it, but it's like, it would have been cool for like them to just never like reference outside of like the show for like this episode.
And this pretty much covers it. I mean, we covered some stuff out of order from what I had originally planned, but we kind of hit every topic I wanted to hit, I think.
Hit order.
We kind of hit everything we needed to hit. So that kind of brings us an end to this discussion for this week. Next week, we're going to be doing a podcast kind of about the first half of 2018. Some other kind of shows. We're not doing anything formal. Like these are all the shows that came out in 2018 and we're ranking. We're not doing anything like that.
God, no.
We're just going to kind of talk about some other shows that we didn't really discuss during the podcast. Anyways, now that we're done talking about Glow, here's what's coming up in the week ahead. Sunday, July 15th, 2018, our cartoon president, the cartoon version of Trump, is back on Showtime. Bonus Family comes to Netflix. The Joel McHale Show, Joel McHale comes back to Netflix. And this is kind of like a last-minute surprise show. Showtime showed like a trailer for something. It was just, the trailer was literally called like Something on Showtime.
Oh, okay.
And all it was like, oh, they have some comedy coming. And they didn't explain anything about it.
Something on Showtime doesn't get me excited, doesn't get me pressing the subscribe button.
No, that was the teaser. And then quickly afterwards, they revealed what it was. And it's a new show from Sacha Baron Cohen.
Yep, okay, yeah, I heard about this.
This is like, the second it was revealed, it was like instant controversy everywhere. Because like, if you've ever seen like the Ali G show or Borat or any of those kind of things that Sacha Baron Cohen
what he does, right?
You know what he does. He interviews people, he tricks them. He tricks them into thinking that there's this outlandish, that he's playing this outlandish character. Like in Borat, it was this Eastern European guy, and the Ali G show, it was this like, was it like a gay rapper fashion? The gay one was Bruno. The Ali G was like
Ali G was he was just like this ignorant, like, wannabe rapper guy, like. Yeah,
that's right. Bruno was the fashion designer, gay. He uses these characters to kind of set up these interviews on subjects. Like it's about this character doing a documentary, and these people think they're getting into these real interviews, and he ends up kind of exposing things about them through this process.
Through this character,
So we know already now that two of the people that get skewered in this one are Sarah Palin and Roy Moore.
Oh God, yes. Okay, this is going to be amazing.
So this is kind of like, it went from you saying something doesn't make me hit the subscribe button to like, I have to see this.
It's amazing. Well, here's the thing. You know, I was just wondering because he hasn't done anything in a long time. And I remember him.
He's done stuff, but he's done like real movies, like not his usual shtick.
Not his,
done, like where he's just
he hasn't done this shtick in a long time. I remember him remarking at one point that as he became more famous and more well known, this kind of stuff was harder to do.
I think he just gave it time. I think that's the secret.
I think that's the secret because I think people start to see him coming, and that's not what he wants with this type of stuff. He doesn't want people to see him coming.
Mm-hmm. And I think that the solution to that is just that he waited for a while. He did other stuff, and now he did it again, and people have kind of forgot about him.
Yeah, exactly.
So what's cool? This show is called Who is America, and his character this time is like a crazy right-wing guy that is just into conspiracy theories and stuff. So he's basically doing something similar to like what Stephen Colbert used to do on Comedy Central.
Right.
Except a bit more extreme.
I think in today's climate, we need a Sacha Baron Cohen.
Yeah.
We need that.
So this kind of came out of nowhere. We didn't know this show existed a week ago. So this is kind of exciting. And it's going to be this Sunday, July 15th. So just in a few days. Then on Wednesday, July 18th, Suits is back on USA. I think these are going to be like the final episodes with Meghan Markle, who ended up marrying one of the princes of England in real life.
Yeah. So yay, good for her.
Then on Thursday, July 19th, Trial and Error Lady Killer debuts on NBC. This is the second season of Trial and Error. I highly recommend the show to anybody. It's kind of seasonal anthology. It's got characters that carry over from each season, but each season is like a new murder trial that takes place in this small town. Mm-hmm. And it's like an eccentric small town. It's very like Parks and Recreation. Like the way the town is just super eccentric and weird, and you just kind of like laughing like, this is so ridiculous, you know? That's, so that's Thursday, July 19th. I highly recommend that series. Also that day, Snowfall returns to FX. That's kind of about the spread of crack cocaine. Then on Friday, July 20th, 2018, Outcast is finally back for its second season on Cinemax. The entire second season, even though this is an American show, the entire second season aired in like the UK like over a year ago.
Oh, wow. Okay.
This has been like long delayed. Like they just kind of held on to it and didn't do anything with it.
Damn.
So it's just another weird story about that. But then Killjoys is back on Sci-Fi, as is Winona Earp. Jimmy, the True Story of an Idiot, comes to Netflix, and The Pains comes to Own, the Oprah Winfrey Network. So that's what's coming up in the next week. Definitely my picks are Who is America, Trial and Error. Yeah. Who is America is the Sacha Baron Cohen show. Trial and Error and Outcast are my top picks there.
Okay, cool.
So yeah, that's it for the show. Next week, like I said, we're going to be talking about the first half of 2018 and some of the shows that have kind of come up around then. Until then, you can reach me on Twitter. I'm at Tyson Gifford. You can reach Will. He is at Voxel Hero. And check out our Facebook page and our YouTube channel, as well as our site, thetotalscreen.com. And you can subscribe to this podcast through any major podcast client like iTunes or Pocket Cast, or watch the entire backlog of this podcast on our YouTube channel, as well as some of our old videos, even going back to the TV enthusiast days, top 10 list and Hannibal reactions and Game of Thrones reactions, all sorts of stuff on there you can check out. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Good night.
Good night.
If you would like to reach out to us and make a comment, send an email to contact@thetotalscreen.com. Stay tuned to The Total Screen for the very best.